Welcome back to another episode of the Four Inside Podcast, episode 18. I'm your host, Mike Obi. Great episode again for you guys this week. Joining me is one of my favorite teammates and one of my favorite people ever. I played high school with this guy, and just seeing his career develop, seeing him develop as a person is why I needed to bring him on. Without further ado, my guy, CT one time, Cam Townsend. Cam, how
Hey,
you
what's
doing,
going
bro?
on? Hey, how you doing, Obi?
Appreciate it, man. I'm good. I'm good. Appreciate you spending some time today, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me out, man. Pleasure's all mine.
All right. Where I want to begin is where I normally go with most of the athletes I bring on here. I want to start with your football career and just your beginning. So, talk about first how you got into playing football and what that was like for you.
So I'll actually never forget. It was in elementary school. You remember Torian, right?
Yep.
So Torian and we were in class together. This must have been second or third grade, and obviously we would go play at recess and things like that. And he was on the little league football team already, but I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And one day he went home and told his dad, he was like, "Hey, Dad, it's this guy at school. He's so good at football. We need to get him on the team." So I gave Torian my parents' number
Mm-hmm.
so he could give to his dad, so his dad could call my mom, so my mom could put me in football with him. so the next season is when I finally started playing for the Stafford Cobras, and man, that's where it all started, So that's where football started for me, was playing at recess in elementary school with Torian, and then him getting that long line of this person to that person to this person,
Right.
and I was finally able to start playing football.
So then fast forward, you get to high school, you're a freshman, and that's where I meet you. We both played for RP, Rich Point High School, and so you're now also being recruited very early on in the process. Just talk about your high school football career from your perspective.
Well, I tell you what, I had a lot of good memories from that. Man, sometimes I still have dreams about whenever we got kicked out of the playoffs our senior year, man.
Don't do it to me.
Sometimes I just wish that never. I wish that never happened, but it is what it is. I mean, like I said, I met a lot of good people.
Absolutely.
Made a lot of good memories, and I had a lot of fun playing too. It was. Obviously we had a good team. We did a lot of winning, so winning makes everything a whole lot more fun.
Absolutely.
And then I guess from like a personal perspective, I felt it was fun knowing that I was good at it, and it made me want to keep doing it and get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's be honest, doing stuff that you're not good at isn't fun. Because it's a long process to get. You put too much work into it to not be good at it. So it's more fun when you are good at it. So
Absolutely.
I was fortunate to be good at it, be highly recruited and things like that. I had a good support system from my parents. They were able to take me to football camps around the state, around the country. That way I could, get myself in front of these coaches. And I think that helped out a lot as well.
Yeah, so talk about it in a little bit more detail. Just you being a highly recruited guy, you were one of the first dudes, especially from our class specifically, but just on our football team that kind of was able to put Ridge Point on the map. You were a 4-star recruit, if I remember correctly, and just talk about what it was like, that lifestyle, being a highly recruited athlete, because, from a common man's perspective, you might be living the high life, but it might not always be that simple. You deal with, with more success comes more haters, more people who want to see you fail. So just talk about how you navigated that process.
Well, I'll say I never felt any envy from anyone. And one of my biggest things was I always made a conscious effort to be a down-to-earth person, right? I never wanted to make myself feel like I was better than anyone because I was being recruited by all these schools, right? Because the way I saw it, me going to play Division I football at a top tier university was just as impressive, but no more impressive than someone going to be an engineer, right? Matter of fact, I think it's more impressive that you can go be an engineer and design a highway than it is for me to go and play football, right? So always thought of it that way, in the sense that, you know, never act like you're better than anyone, never think that you're better than anyone, you know. And I think that is what prevented people from, I guess, hating on me, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I never felt any hate, any ill feelings from anyone, because that's not the energy that I would portray. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. Good to hear. And I can speak from experience. You know, that was one of the things I always respected and admired about you, you know, was the fact that you were humble and that you're down to earth. Because me being a new dude, you know, everybody's telling me before I even met you, they're like, oh, yeah, we got this guy who's highly recruited and, oh, he's a big star recruit. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, this dude's going to be a-hole. And then it was like, you're just like, hey, my name's Cam. How you doing? And blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, all right, you know, I can get along with him. And, you know, I think that was, like you said, one of the things that helped you be a likable teammate, because there are certain dudes who let that type of notoriety get to their head, so to speak. And I think that was what helped you become a better football player, that you didn't treat yourself any better. You didn't treat the team like they were beneath you. You tried to be one of the guys as much as you could. And I felt that was a lot of what, you know, helped you be a good leader, why people elected you to be a captain. Also was the fact that you could be one of the guys, still be able to, you know, have high expectations for yourself, live up to the expectations, but then also be able to still be humble enough to be just as, you know, much of the team as anybody else.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And so, you know, one thing, just talk about your development as a football player, especially as you're going through high school. So, you know, you start off as a freshman, they put you on JV because we didn't have varsity at the time. And then from JV, you know, we have our varsity team. You're a 3-year letterman, right? And so talk about your approach to every offseason. I know one thing that was very unique was, you know, how you would change your diet up every season, your approach to weightlifting, and your all natural approach. You didn't take supplements. So just talk about your mentality when it came to developing yourself as an athlete.
Yeah, so a couple things that I really took serious was off-season training and in-season diet. Okay, so you know, and this is something that I've learned even more as I've become an adult, in that you have to prepare for things well in advance, right? So just going in terms of my preparation back when we were in high school playing ball, you know, my parents, like I said, I was fortunate to have a good support system with them. They were able to put me in training at a local gym. So I was able to be around. I mean, I've actually trained with some of the Houston Dynamo soccer team before, you know, so things like that, being able to kind of get around some of these professional athletes and these collegiate players while I was in high school, I think kind of helped train my mentality. And then, like I said, in-season diet, you know, because for me, I'm like, all right, you got to have a little bit of a balance between work and life. So, like, I'm not going to go on a diet all year round, because it's like, come on, man, I'm young. You know, my metabolism is good. I can eat whatever I want, right? But in season, I want to make sure that I can give myself the biggest advantage that I possibly can.
Yeah.
And I felt like my diet was somewhere that I could do that efficiently, you know, and something that might not be measurable from an external perspective, like no one else could measure that, but I myself felt differently going on those diets, you know. So, and even if I didn't feel differently, just kind of training that mental discipline was important to me, you know. And I think when you develop that mental discipline in one aspect of your life, then it can kind of translate to others, right? So in-season diet, all right, I'm cutting out sweets, or I'm cutting out fried foods. And then that'll translate to mental discipline on the field. All right, I got to have this foot up instead of that foot. I got to attack this gap instead of that gap, right? So I think, like I said, I was I was prepping my body, but I was also training my mind. So, yeah.
Because, one thing I tell young football players and young athletes is, the fact that the mental approach to the game is just as big as the physical approach. You can be as strong as you want to, but if you don't train your mental to be strong, you make a lot more mistakes. And I think that was one of the biggest differences, if not the biggest difference, from what was separating us from being a team that, was 5-6, barely making the playoffs, to 9-3 to 12-0. It wasn't just the fact that we became better football players, but also our minds were into the game too. I look at our defense when I talk about football stuff, and how we were really, one thing that set us apart as a defense was the fact that we approached the game and we were able to really think the game, and we were able to communicate. Like, I joke, our coaches really didn't it got to a point our coaches didn't really even have to call plays if they didn't want to. Like, literally, they literally tell us, hey, somebody, you just call the plays. And we understood our entire scheme, in detail. Now, I wanted to talk about just your diet, as you alluded to, for guys who are getting into playing football and trying to give themselves an edge. The two diets you tried out cutting out fried food, and you tried out cutting out sweets. So talk about how your body felt, if you felt any differences with those two diets, and what were they?
Man, I honestly believe I felt my legs felt lighter later in the season.
Yeah.
You know how when you get fatigued and your legs start to tighten up, and now it's hard to lift your knees up high enough when you run.
Mm-hmm.
You get winded a little bit faster. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe, man, that, and like I said, it could have possibly been psychological, but I do really believe that my legs felt lighter later off into the season. That'd be the biggest difference. Was probably the main difference. The only difference is that I felt lighter, and my body just felt like it was running more efficiently.
Yeah, I can speak to the sweets, because one thing for me was I was into candy, and still am into candy, but I've learned, for me, it was candy, and it was also eating donuts for breakfast. Because we had a Snowflake donut shop in the middle of the neighborhood, and you want to be lazy sometimes and go get donuts, and it was night and day the days when I would go get donuts versus not go get donuts. And I realized, hey, you got to cut this out if you're trying to be successful. You need to cut it out, because I felt heavy. I also was winded a lot faster. I couldn't lift as efficiently. I burn out, I gas out. So, it is true that, the fuel that you put in your body's like a car. The better fuel you put into it, the better output it gives. If you put crap in your body, then your body is going to respond accordingly. So just being able to give that nugget to young athletes, you need to train your body at all times. If you want to set yourself apart, you need to train it efficiently. You need to fuel it efficiently.
Yeah, 100%. It makes a difference.
Yeah. Now, talk about also on the field too. One thing about you, like I alluded to, was the fact that you were a very smart and very high IQ football player. You're a guy that I felt guys could trust. Talk about how you were able to develop your mental to the game.
Man, I would watch. I watched a lot of football.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I watched football. I would watch the NFL channel. Go watch highlights of people on YouTube. Whenever I'd be in the car or on my way to school with my dad or wherever we were going, we usually had on ESPN radio, and So I watched football. I really paid attention to it, and then I would try to implement certain things that I heard on ESPN Countdown or on a highlight video or whatever, and I'll try to implement that into the actual game. And I think that would, like I said, it's all about just finding different places where you can get a small edge over your opponent. And I feel like that was one of the ones where I could do that. Was, like I said, it is not much to it. I was just around football all the time, so I learned it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I absolutely agree. And I was the same way. Like, it was on the way to school, I'm watching football. During lunch, I'm in the library watching football, just watching film, like just watching and dissecting it and watching my position and learning gaps and learning schemes. And, okay, what happens in this? What is the mentality in this? That type of thing. Watching your opponent. People were literally like, dude, what's wrong with you? You're always watching football. I'm like, yeah, it's an obsession, because you want to get better, And so I absolutely agree. So now Was there any athlete or any particular player that you used to watch, or any particular teams that you like to watch when you were dissecting the game?
I used so I mean I would watch like I would watch the commentators talk about Chris Carter and Boomer Esiason and Tom Jackson and all of them. I'd watch them. They'd go up there and they'd kind of break down the plays, top 10 plays, things like that. But I really liked watching Ray Lewis and Patrick Willis. I think those are my favorite two players to really go and watch highlights of.
Yeah.
And then seeing like the passion they played with and how they studied the game. I'd say those were the two people that I really, really watched. And then, every now and then I go watch me some Reggie Bush highlights, because Reggie Bush is the best player that I've ever seen play college football. But technically Reggie Bush never happened, but that's a story for a different day.
Yeah. So then, you alluded to this, and I think this is very key and very vital. Yeah, the importance that your parents played for you. Just talk about that support and their guidance, and how valuable that was to you as you were developing.
Yeah, man, it was big, because in terms of being recruited and going through the recruiting process, man, it takes as much effort from your parents as it does from you as the player, because they're the ones that are taking you to training. They're the ones that are taking you to Austin for the Texas camp, and then to College Station for the Texas A&M camp, and then to Baylor for the Baylor camp, Waco for the Baylor camp, right? So, I mean, they're literally taking me they're taking their weekends to take me all across the state of Texas, and then saving up the money where they could be using to travel out of town to go to this destination and that destination, but instead they're taking me to Nebraska, that I went and took a visit to. Oregon State, I took a visit to. I'd have to USC. I took a visit to. So, it's things that I wouldn't have been able to do if it wasn't for them. You take your official visit and they fly you out and things like that. But I mean, I would have. It's good to have had the opportunity to go out there.
Yeah.
Before then. So, yeah.
Now let's get into, your decision-making process, and how, you're being recruited by all these schools. You have all these offers, and you're having to narrow this list of schools down. One thing I remember was you kept that decision very, reserved. You kept it to yourself. I was one of your closest guys who you were around with. I like to say at the time, me, Dan, Kaiser, and even you didn't tell us. You would tell us, hey, I'm narrowing it down to these schools, and then I'm narrowing it down here and narrowing it down here, but you never told us who you were leaning towards. Now, I know your final three schools at the time, it was OU, it was Texas, and it was Oklahoma State. Just talk about Oregon State, my bad. Yeah. You're right, the other orange team. But just talk about, how you were able to whittle your list down. How many offers did you start off with, and then what was that process like getting down to your final decision?
So, if I remember correctly, I had a little bit under 20 offers, and I'd say probably half of them had actually pursued me hard, And then out of that half, which would have been roughly 10, I'd say I probably only ever really considered, like 5-ish or so. So obviously I was looking into Texas and Baylor, two big in-state schools. They both were doing at least decent at the time. Yeah. And then obviously Oklahoma being just up the road. So I'd say those three schools were probably the first that I was really considering. Just because they're so close, so you had a little bit more access to them to meet the coaches and be around the facility and things like that. And then, so I'll be honest with you, man. Like I said, Reggie Bush was my favorite player to watch, so I always had this fascination with USC. And I'd say that was another school that I kind of really wanted to go to. I really liked USC. Solely because I liked Reggie Bush. Yeah. And Lane Kiffin offered me. Looking back on it, I mean, I'm always, I was in their room with Ed Ogeron and Lane Kiffin and they offered, and Tommy Robinson. They offered me. Looking back on it, I'm not sure if I would have gone or not.
Yeah.
I would have considered it. I would have at least taken a visit, an official visit. I'm not sure if I would have actually pulled the trigger and gone or not. But I'd say, yeah, that was one of the schools that I was looking at. And then Oregon State came around, because one thing that I was really big on was I wanted to kind of go play in the Big 12 or the Pac-12, because I feel like that's kind of where my skill set matched up better. You look at the SEC, the linebackers there are all 250, 260 pounds because they're running power every play. Yep. SEC and Big 10,
Yep.
But Big 12, Pac-12 is kind of more of the pass. And, you got Mike Leach at Texas A&M running the air raid offense. He ends up going to, where is he at? Washington State, I believe. That's just the culture that's behind the Big 12 and Pac-12, and I feel like that's what I was good at. So that's kind of where I was looking at more so. I took a visit to Nebraska, but I didn't want to live there.
Just straight up, just.
I didn't. I found that out once I got there, man. We flew into Omaha.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, it was about an hour and a half drive to Lincoln. Maybe 2 hours, something like that. Anyways, in an hour, all I saw was one Walmart, one car repair shop, and one bowling alley. And I was like, you know what? I can't live there. So, but yeah, that was so looking back on it, I started narrowing it down to, because, Lane Kiffin, he got fired. So I didn't have a USC offer anymore.
Oh, they took it away?
Well, the new coaching staff, they never re-offered me.
Okay.
They came down and I spoke to them once. I guess they found a different person. So, so then I had it narrowed down to Texas, Oklahoma, Oregon State, and I was still kind of looking at Baylor a little bit. But my thing with Baylor, man, Art Browse, he would come to the facility, or I'd be in the locker room, man. He could not remember my name. Couldn't remember my name. And I was like, come on, coach. I never forget, after I went to a game, and after the game, they let the recruits go into the locker room, right? And I go and say hello to him. And I said, hey, Coach Browse, how you doing? And I go to shake his hand. He looks at me. He's like, hey, didn't know who I was. I had an offer at the time. The linebacker coach, Coach Rich was his name. Yeah. I had an offer. I mean, I spoke to the linebacker coach regularly. Yeah. Head coach didn't know who I was. I'm like, Coach, I could literally be committed to you right now, and you don't even know who I am. Yeah. So that kind of turned me off from Baylor, and dodged the bullet there. Boy, I'm glad he forgot my name. Boy, I ain't want to be in Waco, Texas, in the middle of all that, because that was bad for business, man.
I still remember that scandal. That was exactly what I thought about too. I was like, "Ooh, you dodged a bullet."
Ooh, big old bullet. I dodged a shotgun bullet with that one.
that was a Russian roulette to the head, bro.
Yes, sir.
Dunzo.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're at Texas, we're at OU, and we're at Oregon State. So, how is the process? Where are you at in the process now?
So I was really after a while, like a week before I was scheduled to go on my Oregon State official visit, the linebacker coach called me. He said, hey, man, I just want to be transparent with you. We had a guy commit. We filled up our linebacker spots for this recruiting class. So if you wanted to come, we couldn't take you right now. He said, you can still come on your official visit. And if one of the linebacker decommits, or if something changes and we have another scholarship available, and you're still interested, we'd love to take you on. But right now we don't have a scholarship for you because someone else committed. And I was like, okay, that's fair. I'm taking my time, making my decisions, so that's fair. So I still went on my official visit. Yeah, they still treated me well. I still had a good time. But like I said, they had a guy. So now I was just narrowed down to Texas and Oklahoma.
The rivals.
And
Dang.
what did you say?
You got it narrowed down to two rivals. Look at that.
Yeah, yeah. And man, looking back on it, I remember going on my visit to Oklahoma, thinking to myself, I'm going to Texas. I'm just taking this visit to Oklahoma just in case they have something that can just makes me say, wow, there's no way I can't go to Oklahoma.
Right.
So I took my visit to Oklahoma, and looking back on it, man, I will say I felt a completely different energy being there. I really did. Like being around the players, you could tell that they were more team. They were more of a team.
Yeah.
Just the energy that you felt. All the players were close with each other. They played hard, and really and truly, their record speaks for itself. You know, their stats are ridiculous. Something like in the last 10 years, they got more conference championships than they do home losses. You know, right? So, but man, it was just something about Texas. You know, I mean, it's Texas. You know, so and then you got the whole first black head coach thing, and I'm gonna be honest, I think I might have gotten slightly wrapped up into that. Granted, I don't regret anything because I always tell myself things that happen that don't go the way you planned for them to don't always have to be looked at as something bad. They just are. And everything that you've gone through is shaping you to be who you are today and tomorrow, right? So, so I don't necessarily regret anything, but looking back on it, I do remember leaving Oklahoma thinking to myself, man, they're going to have a good team. And of course, that was the year they went to the playoffs. So the first year they went to the playoff like 3 times while I was in college. we went 5-7. So, but yeah, it is what it is.
Like, I got to say this because I never told you this. I need to say it. So at the time when you were making your decision, everybody's getting recruited and everybody's telling me about their decisions, right? When I say everybody, I'm talking about guys at our school, guys who are signing, and then also guys who I knew around the district. So naturally, I'm looking at every school and I'm like, okay, who's going where, and I looked at OU like you did, right? I'm like, man, if Cam, because you told me by this time, you're like, okay, Mike, I got it narrowed down to UT, Oklahoma, and Oregon State, right? So I looked at all 3 schools just because I knew other people who were going there. I looked at OU and I was like, man, if Cam goes to OU, I think he'd have the best chance because Eric Stryker was about to be a senior. He was about to graduate. So you could have easily been next up on the depth chart had you put in the work, which I had no doubts you were going to do. And then I was like, they're a good team, good program, and they ran a 3-4 like we did. I was like, perfect fit. And then but I'm feeling Texas. And I looked at Texas. I looked at Texas and I was like, Coach Strong, rebuilding program. I had my skepticism on UT, but I was like, man, Cam, I knew you had, you knew what you were doing. I had no doubts about your decision. I was just like, bro, as long as you go there and that's what you wanted to do, I was proud, man. I was like, man, you know what you're gonna do. So you make the decision, you go to UT, and the Coach Strong and them, and that staff. And you talked about it already. 5-7 the first year. Just get into your college football experience and what that was like.
Yeah, man. So my first year, man, truthfully, I wasn't ready to play. So I they redshirted me. And then, like I said, we went 5-7 that year. The following year, I was working hard. I was getting better. And I finally made it onto some special teams. So I became a special teams player. Another 5-7 season. Coach Strong gets fired. We played TCU that Friday. Excuse me. We played TCU that Thursday. Lost. We played TCU that Thursday. Coach Strong got fired on Friday.
I remember.
They hired Coach Herman on Saturday. We had a team meeting on Sunday.
So listen.
Turn around.
All right, so I'm a UT Austin fan. I see how you had idolization for Reggie Bush. That was me with Vince Young. So I've
Okay.
always been a UT fan, and watching them collapse as they did after Colt McCoy, right? I'm still a fan, and I'm still watching them. So I'm like, okay, my boy Cam's at UT, and Coach Strong there. I think maybe they could turn it around. And y'all go 5-7 now. You guys are rebuilding, and you go 5-7 again. And I'm at U of H now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Coach Herman, right? And we're I think number 11 in the country, I think at the time, and then we dropped to 17 because we lost the bowl game. Then literally, like you said, Coach Strong gets fired Thursday. Y'all lose Thursday. Coach Strong is fired Friday, and then Coach Herman's like, "I'm out. I'm going to Austin," and I'm like, "What in the heck?"
Right. It happened fast, man.
I was like, dang, and just swooped them like that. But it's cold blooded, man. That's why,
And I remember talking to Josh Burrell. He was saying that Coach Herman had a team meeting to tell the guys that he was leaving. He said half the team didn't even show up, man. I was like, man. But I mean, that's the business, But one thing that I always hate is when, like, coaches do that all the time, but, like, they get mad at players whenever they transfer and things like that. Like, oh, you're quitting, you're giving up on your team, this and that. I'm like, oh, come on now.
Come on, man.
Like, literally, coaches do this all the time. Skip the bowl game, leave in the middle of the season to go coach for a different team. It's like, come on, man,
He didn't coach U of H in their bowl game. Coach Applewhite coached them. So so exactly what you're saying. Like,
I'm like, if it's going to be acceptable for one side to do it, then just at least make it acceptable for the other side. Like, exactly. Don't play the fence on it. So, but.
And you see this even in basketball. We could take it into another sport. How they complain about, players aren't loyal to their team. Oh, why is this guy going somewhere in free agency? Why doesn't he just stick it out? But then you'll trade him in the drop of a dime, coach.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I've never coincided with the whole, you need to be loyal, you need to stick. No, man. If you ain't doing what you got to do to keep me here, if I feel like I can be successful somewhere else, I'm out, man. And it's not quitting, but it's understanding the situation and saying that, okay, this isn't gonna work. I tried, all right, on to something else. Let me try something else now. And that's a risk. I don't think people understand that. The grass is
definitely.
The grass isn't always greener. You're taking a chance on yourself, and you're saying, okay, this didn't work here. Now let me be an adult and let me make the decision to do something else. Right? That's not easy. So, it's not just simply, I'm quitting. I'm taking, I'm seeing the surface, I'm seeing the landscape, I'm seeing the situation, and I'm saying, no, I need to do something else.
Yeah.
So Coach Herman gets to UT Austin. Talk about, first off, what happened with Coach Strong, firstly, in those 2 years where you guys go 5-7. What do you think didn't click or didn't work? And then talk about how things change if they do with Coach Herman.
I think it was a little bit too buddy. Truth is, I think Coach Strong just cared about us as people a little bit too much. It was, when Coach Herman gets there, man, it was just strictly business. I mean, just 100% business, It was, my job is to coach you, your job is to play well, and that's just kind of where it ended. At least that's how I felt. So yeah, I'd say that was kind of one of the things that was Coach Strong's downfall, is that he was nice to us, and I guess it wasn't enough punishment for not playing well, and then, like I said, Coach Herman gets there, and that first team meeting, there was no, hey, I'm excited to be here, happy to be coaching you guys. I mean, this is going to be the hardest off season. A lot of you are going to quit. And that just is what it is. So it wasn't no happy to be here type stuff. It was, we got a job to do. We're going to go win games. So, and then, we got a new program going. We had a really good strength coach with Coach Herman. His name was Coach McKnight. Really knows his stuff, really into the science of everything. And his workouts were hard. They were really hard, man. I mean, we'd be in that weight room for 2 hours, squatting, bench press, pulls, I mean, you name it. We was in there, power cleaning, daily. We'd be in there for I mean, you could feel the hours going by, and then we'd be,
Coach Darnell. No,
man, it was probably about. I mean, in terms of science, the programs were about on par. It's just they were longer with our college coach. Because in high school you got your athletic period that lasts an hour, so it's not like you don't have 2 hours to work out. So you just, but like now, those coaches, I mean, if they say we working out for 2 hours, we're working out for 2 hours. That just is what it is. So, but we had a good program, man. Our bodies were built really good. They were trained correctly. We had all of our different motor units trained. Practice was hard, long, but I tell you what, man, I will say my first year with them, we go 7-6. Felt like none of it was worth it. All the extra stuff that we went through, I was like, come on, man. Like we went 7-6 instead of 5-7. But really and truly, looking back on it, I mean, we had a above 500 season, so that was something to brag about. At least coming from 5-7, 5-7. And then my last year, we ended up winning 10 games, winning the Sugar Bowl. And I tell you what, man, people always ask me which coach did I like better, and I always tell them, man, winning that Sugar Bowl sure did feel good. I liked winning more than I liked anything else. So by the end of my last year there, by the end of my fourth year, it all felt worth it.
Yeah. Starting to, bear the fruits as, you get that Sugar Bowl and y'all win. I remember watching that game. Y'all played, I think, Georgia.
Georgia, yeah.
Kicked their butt. I'll never forget it. That was crazy. And again, it's that grind. And I think, us playing for tough coaches in high school, playing for Coach Smith and playing for Coach Darnell and Coach Kobo, who pushed us, I think, we kind of went through that kind of same thing. We were a team who, like I said, we were 5-6 and we were building. We had to build our bodies. We had to build our minds. And then last year, when we were 12-0, well, 12-1.
Don't remind me.
12-1, but that was by far the funnest. That was just the funnest year of football ever, man. That was crazy. But I think it's that same thing. In the beginning it's tough and it's hard, but then once you win and you're successful and you feel that, you get that bowl victory, it's like, man, shoot, this is all worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
So talk about also what it was like, life in Austin, Texas, and going and getting your degree from UT Austin, man. What'd you get your degree in, and just talk about that lifestyle also.
So I got my degree in health promotion and my specialization in strength and conditioning. And I'd say, so like my degree, kind of what it taught me was, so my health, in terms of my major, health promotion, I basically learned about the total aspect of health, right? So all the different aspects, physical, mental, social, things like that. And then my specialization was in strength and conditioning. So I was basically learning how to enhance people's health through physical fitness. And one thing that I thought was cool was when I started getting into my major courses and my minor courses, and I was, like I said, I was strength and conditioning. So I actually started learning things. About proper strength and conditioning, and I see us doing it in the weight room, right? So that gave me like some satisfaction. Like, okay, I'm learning this in school, and I'm seeing that we're actually doing this stuff in the weight room. That was fun. Whenever I was able to start picking up on things like that. But in terms of like just the lifestyle of being a student on campus, I mean, I felt normal. Even like I mentioned earlier, I never made myself try to feel like I was better than anybody. So, I go to class and I sit there and I ask questions, and I go to office hours and things like that. I mean, I guess the only difference was since I was on the football team, we had private tutors. So I didn't go to like the library to be in a study group. because I had mandatory tutoring
Yeah.
in the facility, you know. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I tried my best to be as normal as possible. But sometimes there's just certain things you can't escape. Like they pay all this money for my scholarship, so they pay these tutors to come and tutor us one-on-one. So that's just what I did, you know.
Nah, that's what's up, man. So just reflecting back on your football career, just wrapping it up. Let's talk about some of the experiences. So, what would you say was your toughest game you played in high school, in your opinion, and then we'll go to college. So, in high school, what was the toughest game you played in?
It probably had to be the last one, the one that we don't like to talk about, the one that we lost. Oh man. Yeah. And, they had a good team,
That was a good game.
They had a good team. But, I don't know, man. They got lucky.
Hell yeah. I mean, I always tell people when they ask me about it, because like I said, like you're saying, and like I've been saying, losing hurts. And it does. Yeah. Losing hurts. Like as much games as you hold on to those losses, man. It's tough. And, people ask me about that even still, 'cause I run into people in, Missouri City and everything. And I said, if we would have played each other 10 times, I guarantee we'd have split 5-5. Like, it was just, the teams were just too evenly matched.
They just got us on that day.
And that's the beauty of the game, man. There has to be a winner, there has to be a loser. And I knew whoever won that game was going to state. I looked at our bracket. We said it at the beginning of the playoffs that year. It was just like, hey, whoever wins this bracket is going.
Whoever wins, it's good. Yeah, we knew that.
They did, Now I think we would have beat Alito, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. I think we matched up better against them.
Absolutely, because they ran the ball and they had mobile quarterbacks. All the quarterbacks we played that year were
all of them.
All of them. You know what I'm saying? So it's just what it was. Who was your toughest matchup you ever played against in high school?
Man, it'd have to be what was it? It was, so we would have been sophomores. What was the green team when they had all those D1 players? Stratford.
Oh yeah, that 6 foot.
Yeah, that 6'7" dude. I think he went to Arizona or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hard.
That dude was.
He was just physically superior to everybody.
And they all could move. That was the thing with that team. It was like it was like a string. It was just all in unison. They all, conducted their steps on the court into a T. So, that Stratford team was really good. Remember, he was a good player.
Them and Marshall that year, whenever Marshall had those two dudes that were
Dion and Mo Porter. I got blocked by Mo Porter. Mo Porter went on and played at Baylor. I'll never forget his big self jumped on my back. I was a heavy dude. I held my own, but the dude was just huge, man. Yeah,
man. These dudes were college ready already, man. There wasn't nothing we could do about that.
Yeah. All right. So now, on a lighter note, what was the best game you ever were a part of? Your greatest high school football memory.
I'd say it might have been. Let's see. There was a blue team that we played. They had a running back that started at A&M.
That was by far our best defensive performance. I already know. See.
Yeah, Yeah. I think he was top 5 in rushing in the state that year.
He was number 1. He had rushed for number one. He rushed for over 2,000 yards that year at the time. This is only week 12. So through 11 games, he had rushed for 2,000 yards. Yeah, 33.
33. Yeah. I'd say that game was where I was like, oh yeah, we really like that,
Yeah, that was the craziest defensive performance. Like, we didn't shut them down. They scored that stupid field goal, but if you watch that game, it was just nothing they could do. Like, I'm not gonna say I felt bad, but I felt bad. It was like,
hey, dang, man, y'all been dominating everybody all season, and then y'all come here and do this. Come on,
right? Y'all laid an egg, bro. No, hey, I'll say you had by far my favorite moment you ever had that game too. I don't know whether you remember this play, but I remember it because I watched it unfold. So one thing about you was, everybody, your label was playmaker, makes a lot of plays, but can he lay the hat, right? I'm like, bro, Cam can lay the fucking hat. Y'all just can't, right? And I'll never forget. The quarterback rolls out, y'all, and he throws the ball. This dude is running on a slant, and I just see Cam's. I literally could see Cam's eyes light up, and it was like a torpedo. And I just see,
Ooh.
and I was like, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That was that. Yeah, I would say that was our best performance of the defense. That was my best game I think I ever played. Career wise, just dominance and being able to be in control. I think the best game that we played, Elkins.
Oh yeah, no, that was a good game.
Just because there was smoke involved, there was trash,
right, a lot of tension,
And we did not like them. We didn't like them. They didn't like us. Highly touted, and it's just that was by far the littest game I'd ever played. And I'm glad we won. Cause I would not have been able to.
Yeah, they wouldn't have let us live that one down, man.
No, because we didn't let them live it down. I mean, that's you got to eat this. Yeah, but now getting to college though, same question I have. What was the toughest team or the toughest game you played in college? That hardest, like,
let's see. And keep in mind, man, I never played a lot while I was there. I was really just a special teams guy. Mm-hmm. But in terms of like a team effort,
mm-hmm.
I tell you who always gives you a fight: Kansas State.
Yeah, that's true.
Kansas State, man, they never roll over.
No,
Kansas State never roll over. They, no matter home, away, rain, sunshine, you name it. Kansas State, they gonna give you a fight. So Kansas State was always, and like, I feel like they were kind of a team where you'd be like, all right, I know they're not that talented. So just, even though you would tell yourself, you don't take anyone lightly, just subconsciously you think to yourself, come on, man, these guys aren't even talented.
Mm-hmm.
So you go in there thinking that they should be less than what they are. Mm-hmm. And that's how they kind of get you.
Yeah.
But they always are going to have a good team and they're gonna play hard.
I got you. And then, what was the best college football game that you've been a part of? That best memory?
Oh, that's easy. That's easy. My second year with Coach Strong, we beat Notre Dame. Oh man!
Opening weekend.
Yeah.
I watched that game on TV. That was lit.
That game, man. Oh, let me tell you something. We swore we was going to the national championship that year. God dang, we just beat Notre Dame, and what was it, like double, triple overtime or something like that.
Yeah, and then they had Deshaun Kaiser and that other dude, and they were on the team.
Yeah, so and then one thing leads to another. What's his name? Brian Kelly fires his whole staff. We go 5-7. Everybody gets fired,
Yeah, right.
But nonetheless, it was a good game.
Yeah, that was great. I watched that on TV. One other game that I watched y'all play was when y'all beat OU that year in the Red River rivalry. That was
that was a big deal too.
Hell yeah.
Let me tell you something. 6th Street was turned up that night. we got on that plane because that game is always at 11 a.m. right? So the games last 4 hours. So 3 o'clock. Get on the plane by 4:35 or whatever. It's an hour flight. Get home. You got time to shower, eat. Boy, we had the club locked down that night.
Now I have a homegirl who she went to OU. She got her first degree from there, and so I told her I was a UT fan. So every year y'all play the rivalry, we talk a little trash, and y'all gave me bragging rights that year.
Oh
I hit her up. I was like, "How about that game, bro?" She ain't talked to me for 2 weeks after that one because of that. It's lit, man. That was crazy. So we got that out the way. What would you just say, wrapping up your football days? What was just your favorite memory, or your biggest takeaway from playing, college football?
So I'd say it was more so outside of the actual field stuff. Is man, I learned how to be. I feel like I learned how to be tough because we went through a lot, man.
Yeah.
We went through a lot, especially when that new staff got there. And they basically spent their first year trying to get the weak guys to quit, you know? They were literally trying to get people to quit and transfer.
Yeah.
And some guys did. Some guys didn't make it, you know? That just was what it was. But, I'll never forget the 6 a.m. hydration test.
What was that? 6 a.m. 6 a.m. hydration test. What is that? Or what was that?
So they would make us take hydration tests literally it is what it sounds like. They would have you pee in a cup, and they had a stick to measure it, and they could tell you however much percentage of water was in there. And basically if you weren't peeing all water, you failed. And if you failed, you got punished, you know? I'll never forget the old linemen. The old linemen, they had it the worst because their coach was, he was hard on them, man. If you got in trouble with them, let me tell you what he would do. He'd have you show up at 5 a.m. before the 6 a.m. workout to do punishment. Then you would do punishment directly after the 6 a.m. workout. And you would do that every day for at least a week, right? So then once you started passing your hydration test, then you wouldn't have to show up early anymore. But literally, he would have them do up-downs for an hour, do the workout, and then do up-downs for another hour after. And I was like, bruh, man, just tell them to drink some more water. Like, bro, we got some water over here, man. If you guys are ready, just give us some more water.
Hey, coach, listen, man. All it takes is a little bit of this.
Just a little bit of this. That's it, coach. You know, but man, I kid you not, we would have those hydration tests at 6 a.m. Well, the workout started at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
If you weren't out there by 5:45, you were late. So you were taking your hydration test at 5:30. So, and granted, if you're asleep all night, that means you're going to go 8 hours without drinking any water.
Yep.
So the only way you could pass it is, one, you had to cheat, which we got in trouble for.
Yeah, cheating, they count.
Well, yeah. So, or you'd have to set an alarm 2 or 3 times throughout the night so you could drink a bunch of water.
Yeah.
But then you never got a good night's sleep because you waking up to drink water and pee every hour, you know? So that part was miserable. That's one part that I don't miss at all is the hydration test. But like I said, man, it made you tough. You learned the importance of being early, showing up prepared. Like I said, they were hard on you, man, but you learned discipline, doing things correctly, doing things as they're expected of you. Yeah. I'd say those are some of my biggest takeaways from playing ball there was mental toughness and preparation. Yeah.
Great. So now fast forward, President Day, fatherhood, your dad. Yeah. So just talk about what that's been like, man, raising your little man.
Hard. And I'll tell you, it's hard, but it's good. It's cool when you see, because it's like you're looking at yourself, you know?
Right.
So, man, you changing poop diapers all the time. While he's young, you have to feed him yourself, and then you can go and feed your own self.
Yeah.
Your whole life is now you're not your own priority anymore. Like you got someone else that's dependent on you. So it's just, I guess the biggest thing is just realizing that you have to be consistent. You really can't you're going to mess up, but you can't mess up.
Right.
Because you want everything to work out for your kid, you want to make sure that you're taking care of them, and granted, I only get my kid, every other weekend because he lives in a different city with his mom.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I'm with him, I try to make sure I make the most of our time. So, But yeah, man, it's hard. It is really hard. I couldn't imagine, people having twins and things like that. People have multiple young kids. I'm like, bro, you only got 2 hands and 2 eyes. I don't know how you can watch more than 2 kids at a time. But it's, like I said, it is cool kind of seeing yourself, and then seeing them grow up, right? I had to hold his bottle for him, and now he feeds himself. And, he might waste it everywhere, but nonetheless, he can feed himself. He can drink out of a cup, He can understand. I can understand. He's 2 years old now. I can understand about 40% of what he's saying, or ish or so. He's watching Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, and he's interacting with the show now, right? So it used to be where he would just sit there and stare at it, but now they're like, "Hey, follow me, let's go," and he's like, "Follow me, let's go." So it's cool seeing them develop. Like I said, it's like looking at yourself grow up.
Yeah. CT 2 time.
Yeah. I'm CT 1 time. That's my little boy CT 2 time.
Man, let's talk about your other, the other hobby interest is you became a chef, man. You're a YouTube chef, and I see you post a lot of your food on Instagram and everything. Let's talk about your infatuation. I mean, obviously, you were into nutrition when we were, younger. And just talk about, how you got into this whole food thing.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest, man. So my parents, they cooked for me growing up. Obviously, I saw my mom cook a lot, and once I went off to college, I was like, well, my mom ain't here no more, so I guess I gotta cook the food myself.
Right.
So I never forget. I would go because I was living in the dorms, and I would go use the kitchen every now and then. But it was a community kitchen, and it was a little bit inconvenient because it's like, all right, you got to go to the front desk. You got to check out the kitchen equipment, go there, use the kitchen. You get in there and you realize it's someone else in there using the kitchen. So now y'all are battling for space, and then you got to go turn the equipment in. And it was just a lot. So I never forget when you go to a bowl game, you get gifts. So my first ever bowl game, which was my 3rd year there, which was our first year with Coach Herman, one of my bowl gifts was a crock pot. I got a crock pot, man. Little cheap old crock pot. But I tell you what, it worked like a charm. And I was able to start cooking in my dorm. So like I turned something on in the morning before I left for class, and I get there later that night and it'd be done. And then I had me a nice old meal, because sometimes I didn't like whatever the dining hall had.
Really?
Right. So I was able to cook my own food in my dorm. And, I'd ask my mom for her recipes and my grandmother's for their recipes. And after a while, man, it became like a form of art for me where I could start to experiment and do different things on my own. So that was kind of where my passion for cooking came. Was, like I said, I didn't have my mom there to cook for me anymore, so I had to start cooking my own food. Yeah. And then once I started doing it, I was like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. Started experimenting, and I just liked it more and more as I went.
No, that's what's up, man. It's not just about playing the game. It's, becoming more well-rounded as a person, and everybody needs things that they fall back on and things they get into. I can speak for myself. After we got done playing, it was like, okay, what's left? I'm like missing something. You got to find and even with like this podcast, it's the same thing. Like, try different things, see if you like them. I got into writing and reading, philosophy and kind of writing quotes and things of that nature. And, I always try to stress to people the importance of, becoming well-rounded, finding things that you like, finding different interests, because you never know. And everybody needs an outlet for something and to develop a skill. Final topic I want to touch on, especially, because you played college football and you've seen it all, the topic of athlete compensation. So college athletes being paid. What's your take on that? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? What's your take on athletes being paid in college?
I'm 100% pro pay the athletes. And I mean, for me, it's really simple, having lived it. The study came out, some numbers came out one time while I was in college, said that every scholarship football player was worth, I like after scholarship, after classes, after everything was worth over $600,000 a year, right? So it's like, come on, man, where's all, like I know all that, that money goes to us being able to have the plane rented out so we can fly to this game and that game and having, custom made shoes and things like that. But look, man, and I'll give you some insight as to what like a really hard day would be like fall camp, like you in the thick of fall camp. I mean, it's 6 a.m. breakfast, right? So you're waking up at 5. Excuse me, it's 5:30 breakfast because the meetings start at 6, right? So once I got to college, it must have been my second year there. The NCAA changed the rule to where you couldn't start anything before 6 a.m. So by that time, it was basically, you did anything before 6 a.m. was voluntary. So, you're waking up at 5 so you can get to breakfast for 5:30, eat your food, meeting start at 6. You go from meeting to practice to treatment to lunch to class to study hall to snack to meetings to walkthrough to dinner to back to your dorm room, and now it's 9 o'clock. You got 1 hour to kind of call your mom, call your girlfriend, sit down, chill for a little bit, but you got to get in the bed because you're waking up and doing it all over again, right? And I mean that can last. I mean, depending on the way the calendar works itself out, that can last 3 weeks. It can last 2 months. So, right, and now you go through all that. I mean, you go through a lot. You go through like it's stuff that having lived it for me feels normal. But like if I were, so like it's hard for me to even bring it up right now because it feels normal to me. But like to the average person, it'd be like, you really do all of that? It's like,
it's not a game.
I'd be in class and, you have those lecture classes where sometimes they let people speak up about their experiences being a student, being a black student, being a student athlete. And you get some students be like, man, everything is so hard for me. I'm taking 12 hours. And I'm like, bro, look, my last semester at UT, I was taking 18, okay? And this was during the fall while we were playing. So whatever's hard for you, I'm like, look, man, this stuff isn't so like I said, being busy all day was normal for me. Having to run head first into 300-pound men because, I was a linebacker, so I ain't have no choice. I mean, that was normal to me, right? So, I saw injuries. The worst thing, I was fortunate I didn't come out with any terrible injuries. The worst I had was a grade 2 high ankle sprain. But I mean, I hadn't seen concussions. I hadn't seen a dude bust his knee open to the bone. I hadn't seen plenty of dislocated fingers, broken arms, broken legs, ACLs. I mean, it's like, come on, man. Like these dudes, I mean, you get your scholarship check, which is, you get a few $100s a month. It's like, come on now. They're literally making hundreds of millions of dollars out here. Like, I know you got more than a few $100s a month to give us, so come on now. So yeah, I'm 100% pro pay the athletes. The athletes make the school money, give them what they're worth.
All I'm gonna say is, because the common thing is you get paid a scholarship. You get paid a scholarship. That should be enough. Like you don't understand. The scholarship's not really doing justice, man. And there's all that money, like you said, that you're doing for a school, especially a school like UT Austin. You know what I'm saying? Right. So where is the money going if it's not going to us, the players, right? And I understand, business, like you said, that money is used for other things, but it's just interesting also just to get people's, background and insight and understanding what they go through. Like it's not, you're living the high life, it's tough, it's brutal. And, just try to, understand where people are coming from and ask, like, hey, what is your take on this? Because it's a big thing, right?
Hmm.
Especially nowadays. Because, like, my whole thing has always been, as far as paying players, not paying players, I just don't like how people get penalized if they do get paid or like if they do
Yeah.
get something. That's really where I have my biggest issue is like, oh, you get your scholarship revoked during basketball. You get suspended because Penny Hardaway helped James Wiseman's family move into their home.
Hmm.
Like, I'm like, come on, man, you're being greedy.
Yeah.
That's my biggest issue. How you pay the players, whether you want to pay them or not, at least let them earn something, because you can't
Yeah.
work either. My brother told me
Right.
this. You can't work, so there's no funds being made for these guys.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, the worst case that I ever heard of was it was a kicker from either Central Florida or South Florida, one of the two. But he had a YouTube channel, man, and he had the YouTube channel before he came a football player, man. NCAA told him you either got to pay back all the money that you made from YouTube or you need to quit. And they made that boy quit football because he had a YouTube channel. It's like, really? Like
Yes, really.
and like my biggest problem with it is it's not even like he's taking money from you.
Exactly.
Like I could
You're trying to count the
understand,
man's money.
right? Like I could understand. It's like, all right, you're taking money away from the university. You're taking money away from the NCAA. All right. You can make an argument for it, but it's like he was making his own money from
Money
a
on the
totally
side.
different organization. Like
Exactly.
he wasn't eating off your plate. So why are you eating off? Why are you mad that he has food to eat? It's like that was. I mean, that was just. It's almost inhumane that you can literally say you are forbidden to make a single dime while you work for me. It's like,
I'm not
are you
working for
kidding
you.
me?
To me, it's not. You're not working for him, but that's a different topic for a different day. I'm just,
Yeah.
hey. All I'm saying is something's got to change, and the only way to affect change is to keep bringing the conversation up and keep bringing light to these
Yeah.
facts.
Mhm.
Closing out, man. This has been a great episode, man. Just what are your final nuggets of wisdom to young athletes, young football players, guys aspiring to play in college, guys aspiring to get to the next level? What are your biggest nuggets of wisdom to them that you can give?
Man, no matter what you do, take everything serious and give everything all you've got. So I'll share a story with that. Man, so I never really played. I never really played at UC. I was just a special teams guy. My first year when Coach Herman and them got there, I got real discouraged. I basically gave up on myself, man.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really working hard. I wasn't going hard to practice, things like that. My last year there, something clicked for me, and I started taking things more serious. I started going hard at practice. That was the biggest thing. I started going hard at practice. And so there, the way things are is you have kind of tiers. So if you get, players can get treatment after practice.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the tiers go is either no treatment means that they don't really care about you. Walk-ons usually don't get it. Well, walk-ons sometimes will get something if they work hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't get any treatment, it's because they don't really, they're like, all right, whatever, you're just here. And so then the tiers for treatment went cryotherapy, which is like this. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, that machine gets like negative 200 degrees. So yeah, cryotherapy was tier 1. There was a float pod, which was tier 2. So like basically a big saltwater bath. And they let they take you to the facility and you sit and you lay down in it and it's real relaxing and they got the candles and the calm music. That was tier 2. Mm-hmm. And then tier 3 was a massage, a 30-minute massage. And then tier 4 was you got all 3 of them. Mm-hmm. Right? So, man, I had never gotten any of it because like I said, I gave up on myself. I wasn't going hard. I turned the switch on, man. I started taking things serious. I started going hard in practice, and I started doing better. And I got selected to do cryotherapy, tier 1. Mm. I got it one time, and so I went to go do my cryotherapy, and they brought in an external source. They brought in a guy, and man, I went to do the cryo, and I was just chit chatting with the guy that was operating it. One thing led to another. We met. We started following each other on Instagram. We kept up. So this is now over 2 years later, almost 3 years later. Today, now that he actually owns the gym that I started training at.
Right. Hey,
right.
Hey.
So and like I said, I'm still working on getting my certification. But we had a conversation together. He was like, "Look, man, I know you know your stuff. I want to bring you on because we're opening a new location. I want you to come be one of the trainers there, right?" But my biggest thing is, and like I said, trying to tie it back into why you should always work hard in everything you do. If it wasn't for me working hard in football, I would have never got selected to do cryotherapy. I would have never met him.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So it just shows you how, even when you think things aren't a big deal, right? I was dead set on, you know what, man, I don't even care about football no more. I'm gonna just try to get out here with no injuries, get my degree and whatever. But really, that was the wrong approach to take, man. I should have been, from the start, I should have been saying, let's go hard, let's go hard, let's go hard. But I'm glad I finally started taking it serious and trying to do my best. Mm-hmm. And that's what ended up leading me to meet this guy. And he was the one that was able to bring me on to do what I've always wanted to do, is be a trainer. So, so to all the guys out there that are listening to this, man, take advantage of your opportunities, but you have to create your opportunities by working hard in everything that you do, no matter what it is, because you never know when things you never know how things can unravel themselves.
Man, couldn't have said it better, man. Great. It was wonderful. All right, that's a wrap. 4 Inside Podcast, episode 18. Want to thank my bro, Cam Townsend, bro. CT one time. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Thanks for having me out, Obi. I appreciate it.
Great episode. You can catch this on 4 Inside YouTube and all platform streaming podcasts. Thank y'all.